Of course, also we're given to understand that, of course, Kalonzo and Kamba leaders will be meeting today to decide his future. That is a story that we want to follow today. But also a new development that is there. Ford Kenya and ANC, as according to what the Star the weekend had, Ford K and ANC merger plan rattles Kalonzo. Options stick with Mudavadi or seek a new alliance ahead of 2022 polls. It seems then we cannot really also escape this issue of 2022 as much as people are saying, yeah, well, it is too early. But now formations are also in the offing, and this is a new development that we want to see if truly it will pan out as well. We want to introduce our panelists who are here with us this morning, of course, to take us through that and a raft of other issues here on People and Politics. We have with us, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Atendo Omolo, who is a member of parliament from Rarieda. We do have with us also Senator, the former Senator of Nyeri, that is Senator Mutai Kagwe. Also, we do have with us Senator Kimani Matangi, who is a senator from Kiambu. We do have with us as well former Chief Whip of the National Assembly, that is Jacob Midio. And also we have Dr. Eseli with us as well to tell us more about this particular new development, Eseli Simiyu. Right, let's just begin with you, Eseli. This particular development that we can see, is there a merger, first of all, between Ford Kenya and ANC? And how will that also affect Kalonzo?
What I'm aware of is we are working on modalities of how ANC and Ford Kenya can work together. If it will result in a merger, time will tell. But first of all, we have to start working together. And that's what we are doing.
So there's something up your collective sleeves as far as merger is concerned?
Yes, but that did not mean excluding Wiper or anything of the sort. It's just that we felt that being the two leaders being from the western sector, we thought it would be better if they worked together rather than worked against each other.
All right, so
that will make that, we felt that could give us a bigger bargaining power than when we got to everything separately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that means also, as you're putting it, is a caveat that you're not excluding a Wiper on this. Does it mean then we have Ford K and also we have ANC and Wiper, maybe if they join you, then we have all of you pulling out of Nasa, so Nasa is only left to, you know, ODM and the rest of the parties that are there?
As far as I'm concerned, and as far as Ford Kenya is concerned, Nasa doesn't exist for us anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nasa doesn't exist. Yeah. All right, Otiende, Nasa doesn't exist. Are you aware that Nasa doesn't exist?
Thank you, Debarl. Let me say good morning, Kenya. Once again, we are happy to be here. It's been an eventful week since we were here. I think you'll remember last week we came straight from here to the sagas of Dr. Miguna and other related matters. But also that same last week, we were here with Dr. Eseli Simiyu. He asserted, as he's asserting now, that Nasa is dead. He asserted, as probably he will assert soon, that they are aggrieved because of the handshake. We maintained then, and we still maintain now, that Nasa is not dead. I think the problem here is my colleague and friend, Dr. Eseli Simiyu, and some of his colleagues are speaking from both sides of their mouth.
Yes.
On the one hand, they say that they are aggrieved because of the handshake that Raila had with Uhuru. And the very same day we leave here, the next day, Dr. Eseli Simiyu here leads a delegation to DP Ruto for similar talks. So if the problem is talking with the president, then why is it not a problem talking with the deputy president? Secondly, they assert that Nasa is dead. At the same time, they say Raila should leave Nasa because they want to remain in Nasa. So if it is dead, what do you remain in? Of course, Nasa is not dead. And I think that the move that Ford Kenya and the ANC are taking, first, the rationale and the basis is false. But secondly, I think it's retrogressive. I don't think this is a time you can start talking of tribal parties when we had already moved so much that we are talking of coalitions of various, persons based on persuasion. To talk of now going back inward to talk of the Mulembe nation is really retrogressive. I think that I would understand anybody who's aggrieved for any reason and wants to form any sort of coalition, but not to move backwards. And I think the elephant in the room is that the three core principles outside of Raila Amolo Odinga, each wants to inherit the basis of NASA, and each wants to be a presidential candidate. But each wants to first find a way of vilifying Raila Amolo Odinga for the handshake so that he can be shaken off, but then they still have the benefit of that following. I think that's what's happening. But as I said last week, NASA is there. We are in ODM, but we remain part of NASA. But anyone and any person who wants to leave an association, a marriage, or a coalition will always try and find any reason to do so. But our position so far is that we are still in NASA, which is why you've not seen any movement, even in terms of the distribution of positions within the National Assembly. It remains intact. So for us, NASA is still alive.
It's still alive. But would you mind telling me, of course, the memorandum of understanding that you do have within NASA, what is it predicated on? Can you just give me 3 memorandum of understanding, the articles that you do have in your memorandum of understanding about NASA, and especially when we have such a scenario where we have, other parties willing or seeking to join, parties within parties to come out of a coalition?
Well,
what is a memorandum of understanding? Is it a gentleman's agreement, or there is actually something that is on paper?
Of course, the NASA coalition agreement is a document on paper. But the NASA coalition agreement was always predicated upon formation of government, winning the election and forming government, and a number of structural reforms that were going to be undertaken even within the structure of government, including creation of positions such that each of the 4 principles would actually have a slot. If we were to actually go back to that, it should be understood, one, that the issues of which, for example, Ford Kenya is complaining about are not predicated on the coalition agreement. The question of who's the leader of minority in Senate was never contemplated. In fact, it was never contemplated that any of the principals would at the same time be running for some elective office like senator. So the fact that my friend Senator Wetangula chose to run for Senate was itself, not a breach of the wording of the coalition agreement, but a breach of the implied principle, because each of them was going to have a reserved position within the structure. But that was overlooked, and that was let go. Now, when therefore the senators, and we've discussed this, even when we were here last week, the Senator Kimani Wamatangi, when the senators chose to exercise their institutional independence and replace its leadership, that is entirely a matter for the Senate based on different reasons. It was never on account of the NASA crumbling.
All right, so essentially, then is that the prime solution for you actually to bolt out from NASA right now, or is there any recourse from the memorandum of understanding that you can actually seek solace from?
When I say NASA is dead and anybody disputes it, I find it very interesting, because I'm supposed to be one of the co-chairs of the NASA coalition. I can say with no fear of contradiction that we've not met. So it doesn't exist. We've not had any meeting for quite some time now.
Since the handshake, you've never had a meeting?
Even after the handshake, we had this meeting in Konza, and that was it. We've not had any meeting as a coalition. And moreover, if you talk about whether Senator Wetangula was supposed to run for Senate or not, and all that, how do you retain a coalition when some partners are abusing, literally calling names their colleagues within the coalition? How does it exist? I think let's face the truth that it's untenable, and if NASA was to exist, not in its current form. Not in its current form. Okay. And the issue of saying that is because of the handshake, that is not entirely true. Because soon after the handshake, after the meeting in Konza, in Stony Athi, we all agreed that that was a good decision, that we should start having structured dialogue, and we were all supportive of it. Even up to now, we are still supportive of it. So there's been nobody against the handshake. That you see, that's the tragedy of NASA, that one side, specifically the ODM side, has been always out to vilify the other three principles as not towing the line, as not, doing what is supposed to be done. So like now it's being said that they are against the handshake. It's the continued, degradation of these three. How do you run a coalition that way? It can't work. It can't work. It can't work.
All right, let's see the fresh mind.
That's the truth we need to face as a country.
Okay.
If NASA is to continue, in my view, because when we wrote that coalition agreement, I was very aware of what is there. If one party leaves, the other three can continue. And we feel that in this instance, ODM seems to be very uncomfortable working with the other coalition partners, the other principles. So we suggest that if NASA were to continue, then ODM should leave. Then the three can continue with the other three can continue with NASA. Otherwise, if that is not possible, then just forget about NASA. Let's chat about other avenue forward.
Let's pick up the mind of Senator Mutahi Kagwe on this. I think now you were watching very freshly, of course, looking at
it's
things.
Very interesting, Debarl, to watch it from the outside. I think my colleague Jacoyomi will agree with me. But when in a marriage, such as the one called NASA, one of the spouses is telling you that this marriage is dead, then you are bound to believe if it looks dead, if it smells dead, then it is dead. And since the marriage is made up by two persons or three persons, as it were, in this particular case, if some of the parties are saying clearly that we are not interested in this marriage and we are out of this marriage, and you can't force them into the marriage, then, those of us from the outside would presume that there is no marriage unless there is consensus on all the parties that we have a marriage. Where there is no consensus, where one party has decided, I don't want the marriage, then it goes without saying that the marriage does not exist. So for us from the outside, I don't want to interfere with domestic affairs. I'm not one to interfere with domestic affairs of other parties. But having said that, simply as an observer from the outside, that is what it looks like to me.
All right, so essentially what we're talking about, and Senator Matange, last time I think he was to prepare a Daj for NASA to come and sing a song for us today that he's preparing also for a funeral for NASA as well. I wonder if he prepared the song actually for NASA. It seems, yeah, we will have a burial.
It was not a song. It was, I had offered to write at least 2 paragraphs.
An eulogy.
In the eulogy.
It was a eulogy at the Dutch.
But I had also offered to read the eulogy. Well, but my colleague here, Senator Mutahi Kagwe, and I want to first welcome Senator Mutahi Kagwe. He's been an MIA, missing in action, at a time when he should have been here. And I think, but Jaco has been here before. Let me wish our viewers good morning. And Debarl, I also hope you also had a happy Easter. Did you?
I did.
Yes, but it looks like you're working all the way through.
You have to constantly work.
Yeah, Mutahi puts it well, that this is a divorce, probably, and he's referred to a marriage. It has no signs of really a marriage. It was a come we stay. and in this come we stay, at least even the most minimal of requirements, the bride, read to be Raila Odinga, then, he's the husband in this relationship. He did not even bother to take any dowry for his 3 mistresses. So divorce then under such circumstances can be very messy. because the minimum you have to do, if you take at least dowry, then you give rights for some claims. It is recognized even at least traditionally that you have married customarily. This was nothing, and you have heard what Dr. Otende Amolo said, and I hope you didn't miss that point, and viewers didn't miss that point. He said that NASA was premised on the hope that once they won the election, that is when that unity would have held.
Yes.
I mean, otherwise, without that, it was not there. And you can read that truthfully from the actions. One, as I said the last time here, they refused to either dissolve and leave the outfits and become one called Nasa. Two, it's been put very well. If you look at some of the principles like Wetangula, that question is important. Why did he choose to run for Senate? And the other principles were out. I want to say just two things. One, I think, starting with the question that you asked on the merger between ANC and Ford K, you would ask yourself, Debarl, what were they thinking in the first place? I mean, for them to even start talking about a merger now. I mean, if you look at the people whom ANC were claiming to be their supporters and Ford K, being relatives from across the ridge, Wetangula in Bungoma and Musalia on the opposite side in Vihiga. What business would they have telling people that they had two different parties? Of course, that shows they had no intention in the first place to be one. Then look at Kalonzo Musyoka, even yesterday in his talk there. You know, it is very clear, and he has never hidden this, that even amongst the three, remove Raila, even amongst the three, Kalonzo still believes, and I think rightly so, that he's the most senior partner. And that is why he's declared there that he is not going to play second fiddle to anyone. Even if they were to merge the three of them, as Dr. Isali is saying, they would still have a problem, because Kalonzo has clearly claimed that if he is running, he will be running for the top post. And look at their histories again, their political records. Kalonzo has served the longest time in government and in the most senior positions. Yes, Mudavadi was once a vice president, but only for, was it a week or a day?
3 months.
So 3 months. Kalonzo has been deputy vice president for years. So in terms of political experience and what you'd call stock in trade, I think Kalonzo would claim. So this thing that has been there in public domain cannot be denied, that Raila is Nasa and Nasa is Raila. So when Raila has walked out, being first among the equals, as we've said always here, he's walked out with Nasa. And so what you are seeing now, you know, the scurry that you're seeing of this one running to this cocoon, and Kalonzo now is back to his roots. You saw Mudavadi and Wetangula, the two of them atop a vehicle in a place in Western. They have also run back to their tribal cocoon. That tells you that the umbrella is gone. The umbrella, Nasa, was always held and carried by Raila Amolo Odinga. So there should be no more pretension. Raila said clearly, and I can remind you when and how. He said that he does not need these other three guys as long as they're not playing his game. And the writing has been on the wall. It is only that they took too long to read and interpret what the writing is. The writing is that if they don't follow the edict, the dictum, and the path of what Raila says as the leader of Nasa, then they have no place. They can go.
All right, so it sounds like he's really a draconian leader, that's a foot on the neck sort of management within NASA as well. Let's hear from Jacomedio.
Well, I am like Senator Mutai Kagwe. I am not a member of NASA. I am not a member of ODM. I was literally kicked out. So I'm a freelancer.
You were kicked out of ODM?
I was literally kicked out.
Were you kicked out or you opted out?
How did I opt out? I won my nominations by 12,000 votes. I was never given the certificate. So yeah, I was literally kicked out.
Or were you?
There's no other definition. So, but since we are talking about a subject that affects Kenyans, coalitions, especially pre-election pacts, are formed to win elections, and they die immediately after that election if you don't win. In this case, NASA won elections. Wamatangi and his group stole the elections. So it is still the same.
Yours was stolen.
Exactly. No, it's just true. There's no difference. Both scenarios are just the same. So, but must we stay crying? We must move on. In my view, NASA died on 30th of January when those cowards did not go to Uhuru Park. That was the death of NASA. That is just practical. You can sugarcoat it like Otiende says, we are still there. No, it's just there in paperwork. But you know, to go and dance politically with 2 million men and women who are ready to die for you as NASA, and you don't show up. Some of them were just sitting here on Riverside Drive, and you don't show up. I mean, then you come and claim something about NASA. You're not right. And Kenyans are not stupid. We must deal with our problems, the dishonesty amongst leaders. Number two, I disagree with Otiende over this issue of Wetangula. And I also disagree with Matangi. Wetangula was the immediate former minority leader. And Wetangula was also a senator. The pre-election pact, this NASA thing is pre-election, not post-election. So that senators cannot go and break the law. I love the law. You can't purport to kick out Wetangula. It shall come to haunt. It shows dishonesty. It shows impunity. It doesn't look good. But in my view, can I just finish?
Yes, yes.
In my view, that decision should have been made away from the Senate, but from a NASA meeting, like my good neighbor, Dr. Eseli is saying. It's simple. Wetangula is only one senator in Ford, Kenya. But they made the decision. The leaders of NASA. Let us stop teaching Kenyans bad manners. I leave that. The handshake.
Now, before we go to the handshake, the headline question remains then, how also did Senator Wetangula arrive to that particular position? Because it is questionable.
Pre-election pact. It's even with losing
pre-election pact, because many of also the members of the Senate are not really aware about this particular pact, right? Pre-election pact with who? Was it amongst the principle that also some of...
You know, the law says you do a pact, you deposit with Lusindong. It's the only way you can undo it. You can't have too many people making up decisions about one thing. But that thing is in law, Debarl.
Okay.
We made the law.
All right. I think we crossed the Rubicon right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was saying, you know, this guy kept telling us we shall talk after swearing in. So what, after swearing in, Raila and Uhuru shake hands. Then the same people who kept making noise, we shall talk after swearing in, they don't show up for swearing in. Then people are saying, let's talk. Now they are saying they are shortchanged. You see, in my view, let me just say this. In my view, it was all meant to kick Raila out of politics. It just didn't work their way. All these people, there are too many people around Raila and NASA who dreamt that Raila would be down and out. He has many lives, in my view. So that the handshake shocked too many people. And they even say, people died. Yes, people died. So you want my people to keep dying. The people who die are from my villages. You know, the sabotage, and even the opposition about this thing is too loud. I came from Kisumu yesterday evening. It's too loud. Because somebody somewhere thinks it didn't go their way. This country needs to be reorganized. This country needs a few things. We must have a country where a policeman does not just shoot human beings when they are on the job. We must have a country with a working economy. We must have a country where all Kenyans are proud to serve in the civil service, not two tribes. Those you can sort out even without winning the elections. We must sit down, and as people talk, I hope it will include everybody, Kalonzo, Raila, Wetangula, all these people, so we can sort ourselves out. Let us kick out primitivity and mediocrity.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we took a short break, we promised, of course, to circle back with the issue of Ukambani. And I want to begin with you, Dr. Otede, unless you have other things that you wanted to point out before we embark on this particular discussion.
No, I just wanted to point out, so that we wrap up on that NASA issue.
Yes.
I think Dr. Eseli Simiyu always amazes me. he states here that NASA is dead. Then he continues to say that if it is to continue, it would not be in its current form. That means it is not dead, because if it's dead, there's nothing to continue. But I think what's more important is that Dr. Eseli Simiyu and the other co-principals keep repeating that they have no problem with the handshake. If they have no problem with the handshake, I would love him to tell us, therefore, what is it they have a problem with? Was it the swearing in? If it was the swearing in, then why would they have a problem when their primary complaint is that they wanted to attend the swearing in their own opinion, they were not updated, which is not true, but that's what they've said. But secondly, I think that where we are, debating whether NASA is dead or not becomes irrelevant. NASA is and was always a marriage. If anybody wants to walk out, they are free to walk out. Those who believe the marriage is sustainable, like we've maintained as ODM, then are free to remain. In fact, in this country, we have a history where whenever there's a political party or coalition, if anybody wants to walk out, they adopt that name and add the word K. That is what happened with Ford and Ford K. That is what happened with ODM and ODM K. So if they want to form another one, they can form NASA K. For us, and I agree with Kimani Wamatangi on this, we, and with our principal, the chief captain, Raila, maintains that we are in ODM, but we're in NASA. So if anybody wants to walk out, they have what we call the right to first refusal by walking out.
All right, so if they walk out and you remain with ODM alone, will it be a coalition? What sort of a coalition will that be?
You must know that there's nothing like remaining with ODM alone. The Ford Kenya, ANC MPs, there are many MPs and senators and governors who are elected on Ford Kenya, who are elected ANC, but are firmly within NASA, even as we speak. So, and Dr. Eseli Simiyu here will tell you that even as they speak as Ford K, even as they speak as ANC, they're not speaking with a unified voice. So there are sections of those parties who want to walk out, but there are significant sections who are prepared to remain in, and we're happy to remain with those ones.
That is the exact reason why we must finish this NASA thing. Because if we stay as NASA, the three other parties who are non-ODM stand at risk of being cannibalized by ODM, as they have cannibalized ANC. So like the people that Otienda Amolo says are within our parties, yet they are still saying they're in NASA, they are the people that ODM has taken, you know, so that they support the ODM cause, not necessarily the NASA cause. So that as we speak, the ODM has cannibalized ANC by taking on the nominated MP Ososi, taking on the Senator Malala, taking on Senator George Haniri, and so on. So this cannibalization is what we are not going to do. In fact, in my view, the longer we stay on as NASA, and after the handshake, then the three other parties than ODM stand the risk of being cannibalized by ODM and cannibalized by Jubilee. So it's in our own interest not to continue with this arrangement. Because as Otienda has confirmed, there are those members from our parties who appear to be actually moving the ODM way. He didn't name them exactly, but I've named a few. These are people who actually have been cannibalized.
The word cannibalization
by seems you really have an insatiable, you know,
so for me,
hunger to...
The word cannibalization,
yes,
read it to mean in political terms, persuaded to join the cause. So these are people who have remained steadfast to the NASA cause, but then there's like my friend who wants
if you have 13 MPs and 3 have decided to stay with the ODM cause, the other 10 are not. So as far as Fort Kenya is concerned,
okay,
we are yet to see any who has decided to stay.
Let's bring it to a close.
The ODM cause. Because the NASA cause and ODM cause should not be confused to be one and the same.
So ODM, they're pushing their own agenda, you know, under the fig leaf of NASA.
Yes.
Yes?
I think, Debarl, as you bring it to a close, I think what we are seeing here is a demonstration of the death. You know, there is a saying in most communities that a lot of issues come, you know, when the marriage is dying. You know, when the Udhoni is dying, that's when you hear a lot of hurabalu and all sorts of things. So in a sense, I think that the two gentlemen are both right, in the sense that NASA is going to go with Raila. The name, at least the name NASA, is going to go with Raila because it is him. Although, by the way, the person who actually came up with the name Nasa was actually Musalia Mudavadi. You know, it was actually Mudavadi who actually created the Nasa concept as far as we outsiders know. But having said that, that's the issue to deal with. And I think that going forward, when you look at what is happening in Ukambani, and Kalonzo declaring that he is going to be, you know, the sole candidate and Wiper is going to be strengthened and so on, you know, if it were alive, they'd be talking about the strengthening of NASA. They would not be strengthening Wiper. They're talking about strengthening Wiper, not strengthening NASA. So as far as that story is concerned, I think we are, as the expression goes, we are just beating water, you know, in a drum. You know, you beat it 10 days, it still remains water. You beat it a month, it will still remain water.
Okay. Right, so maybe we should hop on the issue of Ukambani politics a little bit and then ask you, because it seems also the positioning and posturing of 2022 is coming to the fore. Albeit all Kenyans are really fatigued, we know, about politicking. They really just want to get a rest right now. But even we can hack back on last week, we had Sonko also really talking about, you know, Mount Kenya meeting at night. Maybe you you could be privy to this particular information, that people were meeting at night, and where were they meeting, in which forest?
First of all, let me say this. It's a pity, really. For me, it's a pity that we are discussing 2022. You know, as a nation, we cannot afford as a country to be discussing politics day in, day out. I think the debates we should be having is how are we going to create jobs for our people?
Yes.
You know, how are we going to be able to make our healthcare better? These are the issues really we should be talking about. But having been forced into it, I think the issue of people meeting, whether people are meeting, particularly, and it's not just Central Province, whether it is Western or Nyanza or whichever other area is meeting, I think that people can meet during the day without any apologies to anybody. People can meet during the night without any apologies to anybody. They can meet in the morning. They can meet in the evening. There is absolutely nothing wrong with people meeting at any time. And secondly, and to push it even further, there is nothing with people meeting to discuss who they want to support and who they don't want to support. It is within their rights. The only pity for me is that we are actually talking politics at a time when we should be talking development issues. But as to accuse a region or a county that they are meeting or not meeting is what the lawyers call void ab initio. It is not an issue at all. I don't even know why we are discussing it. I don't even know why it's on the table.
All right, Senator Matangi, briefly on that, then we move on to other issues.
Yeah, thank you, Debarl. I first wanted to remind my two good friends there on that debate on who walks away with NASA and why, and is it ODM that's walking away with NASA? Unless we are forgetting history. You know, ODM has remained what it is and what it was even during the last government. You know, the only thing that Dr. Eseli and the other members, you need to remind yourself is this, that Raila being the political supremo he is, and because he is good in his act, he will certainly find a way. Remember, in the previous coalition, he had CORD. He managed to get people, but he still had his ODM. And coalisted the other people around and called it CORD. That was a new coat, a new jacket to wear, and move into a new dance, you know. And he dominated the dance, and he became prime minister. And at the end of this process, now it's time to take off that jacket. He wore another one. It doesn't matter who made the jacket, as long as it fitted him. And it's called Nasa, you know. And I agree with Mutahi that actually the person who started first drumming up that name, Nasa, in fact, at many times when Musalia would be talking of Nasa, it sounded so off. I mean, until now it became, you know, rhythmic and accepted because of being repeated. But it was a jacket that fitted the you know, main actor, and he wore it, and so there he is. At the end of the process, you know, he's shook hands, and he's reorganizing and re-strategizing for his next destiny. And I can tell you, probably, don't even worry or fight about NASA. From the political history, the remaking of Raila, how he remakes himself, don't be surprised if come 2021 or 2022, he's wearing now a new tuxedo. with a new name and ready to get into the arena. That's, I mean, you know, I think the best thing for these gentlemen to agree is, you know, the early arrangement, whether you call it NASA or anything that you like. You know, if it was a marriage, yes, it's dead. It's not there anymore. Right. And pursue your course. On this other issue that you asked Debarl about night meetings, I want to say categorically as a leader from Central Kenya that that agenda is not what is on top of our table right now. We are sensible people. We know what to do. We know what not to do. We know which destiny to pursue, where our interests are as leaders from Central Kenya. And that agenda right now is not on our table. Our immediate agenda is to ensure, because Uhuru-Raila Kenyatta is the President of the Republic of Kenya, under the Jubilee government, together with William Samoei Ruto, and they have made promises that must be brought to bear and seen to be really implemented, then we have to focus and remain steadfast in that course. When the time for that politics comes, we shall play that politics and play it right. We will not get it wrong. That one you can be sure about. Very right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.